Tuesday, December 10th, 2024 to order. This meeting is being convened in person and by electronic means. As such, council members may participate in person or by electronic means. For council members participating by electronic means, please ensure your video is turned on and let the clerk know if you leave the meeting for the purposes of confirming quorum. And just to remind, we have bare quorum with the 6 of us here now. Council members are reminded that in accordance with section 14.13 of the procedure bylaw, members must enable their video to confirm quorum. If council members attending by electronic means lose connection during any portion of the hearing, we will recess the meeting until the connection is restored. If council members lose connection during the voting process, staff will get you back online quickly while we suspend the voting process. The contact information has been circulated to you. Members of the public can view the proceedings via the live stream and YouTube link, which will be posted on X at Van City Clerk. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded homelands of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. We thank them for having cared for this land and look forward to working with them in partnership as we continue to build this great city together. In case of an emergency where we need to evacuate the City Hall building, I would like to direct your attention to the exits. There are 2 exits beyond the glass doors and to the left. If these exits are obstructed, please direct your attention to the 4 exits in this chamber. Please use the stairs, do not use the elevator. If you require accessibility assistance, please remain at your location and wait for the security staff to guide you to a safe location. I'd also like to highlight that there is a defibrillator located at the end of the hallway outside the council chamber. I also would like to take a moment to recognize the immense contributions of the City of Vancouver staff members who work hard every day to help make our city an incredible place to live, work, and play. Clerk, may we have the roll call, please?
Yes, thank you. Mayor Sim is on a leave of absence. Councillor Carr?
Present.
Councillor Kirby-Young is on a leave of absence for civic business until 7 p.m. Councillor Dominato is on medical leave. Councillor Bly? Don't see Councillor Bly. Councillor Boyle is on a leave of absence for personal reasons. Acting Mayor Fry is in the chair. Councillor Montague?
Present.
Councillor Klassen?
Present.
Councillor Meisner?
Present.
And Councillor Joe?
Present.
You have quorum, Acting Mayor Fry.
Thank you, Clerk. Before we begin, I have some announcements. The public may participate by speaking in person, by phone, or by submitting written comments to Mayor and Council. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. Speakers should also state whether they are in support or opposed to the recommendations and that they are a resident of Vancouver, and if they are a resident of Vancouver. Those speaking on behalf of 4 or more persons or groups, including the speaker, will have 8 minutes to speak, and only if those represented confirm by introducing themselves on the line or in person. Those who are represented by another speaker must not be individual speakers themselves. Speakers may only speak once and should follow along on X at Van City Clerk for updates on the progress of the meeting so they don't miss their turn to speak. Any comments on agenda items can be submitted in writing through our online Mayor and Council public hearing feedback web form. This link will also be posted on X. Speakers who pre-registered with presentations are reminded that the public live feed has a slight delay to navigate through the slides of your presentation. Please say next so the clerk may advance your slides. I'd also like to note the City of Vancouver's longstanding commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, including utmost respect for all genders. And I remind Council that when addressing speakers and staff, we will avoid using gendered honorifics and will instead refer to the person by first and last name, role, or title. Reminder that Council's role at a public hearing is to be a quasi-judicial body, which means Council is only to consider the merits of the rezoning application or a heritage designation. Council members may ask clarifying questions from speakers, including the applicant, or request technical advice from staff, but should save debate for after the close of the speaker list. After hearing from speakers, Council may 1. Approve the application in principle, 2. Refuse the application, or 3. Refer the application to staff for further consideration. Finally, if Council does not conclude hearing from all speakers this evening, we will recess and reconvene the meeting on December 12th, 2024 at 6 p.m. All right. First item on the agenda, 2610 Marine Crescent, Heathfield House, Heritage Designation. Before we begin this agenda item, if anyone believes they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anybody have a conflict to disclose? Seeing nobody, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by the General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability
to designate the structure and exterior of the building at 2610 Marine Crescent, known as Heathfield House, which is listed on the Vancouver Heritage Register, as protected heritage property. This proposed bylaw would allow the Director of Planning to grant additional density for the site under Section 5.12 of the Zoning and Development Bylaw, and other relaxations, in exchange for the rehabilitation and protection of the heritage building. No correspondence has been received on this application since referral to the public hearing.
Thank you, Clerk. This is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445#. Before the close of the speakers list, this phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. We have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Since this item has no speakers registered, so council could opt to waive the staff presentation unless any members would find it helpful.
Move to waive presentation.
All right, that was moved by Councillor Montague and seconded by Councillor Carr. All in favor?
Yay.
Okay, so we can waive that presentation. Thank you. Please note that the General Manager, Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability is the applicant for this item. With that, would the applicant like to present the application? I think we went through that, but offering that to PDS. Are there any questions from council to staff? And sorry, I don't have my Creston panel up, so.
It's Craig Marks, Diamond Group Architecture. We don't wish to make a presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, any questions for staff? Seeing none. Okay, well, in that case, this is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers to this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the end of the speakers list. The phone number has been posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Now we can hear from the public. Clerk, do we have any speakers on the line or in person?
Acting Mayor Fry, there are no speakers for this item in the chamber or online.
Great. Okay, so this will be the third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445#. We're now going to take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers. I'm back in 5 minutes. Okay, wow, look at that. Way to go, Council. You're all here after 5 minutes, except for Councillor Meisner.
Sorry, I'm back.
Oh, there we go. Actually, technically that was 5 minutes, so well done, Councillor Meisner. Okay, thank you. Clerks, do we have any speakers on the line or in person for this item?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. So seeing as there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. Seeing as there are few or no public comments received after 5 p.m., I'm also now closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant have any closing comments? Seeing none, do staff have any closing comments?
No closing comments from the applicant. Thank you.
Thank
No
you.
closing comments from staff.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for staff?
Move recommendations?
Okay, and I just have one last bit on the script here.
Oh,
Actually, Clerk, did we receive any additional public comments since the close of public comments?
No, we did not.
Okay, so council can now make the decision on the application. I see moved by Councillor Carr, second by Councillor Montague. Council members, any discussion? If not, we can just jump right to the crest on queue and vote on this particular item. Clerks, if we could pull up a voting queue, please. And actually, clerks, I don't have the other view enabled, so I'm going to have to rely on you to let me know when those results are in.
Councillor Fry, you've not voted yet. Would you like a vote assist?
I've got it. Yeah, yes, please. I'm saying I voted, but yeah, vote assist in favor, please. Oh, clerk, I think that I may be registered. I'm seeing 7 votes in favor. There's only 6 of us here, so can we verify where the extra vote's coming from?
Yeah, it's showing Mayor Sim, Kevin.
Apologies for that. We're just going to call the vote again with Mayor Sim set as absent.
Great, thank you. I think I may be logged in as Mayor Sim in that case, so. Clerk, I seem to be voting and then it turns off again.
Chair Fry, the mayor will be marked absent after the fact, and the vote carries unanimously.
Okay. Okay. Okay, just noting the crest on is showing 4 votes in favor, but I'm assuming you've got that recorded correctly over on that end, so we can move along. Item number 2, CD1 text amendment 8 East Broadway, formerly 2-24 East Broadway and 2520 Ontario Street. Before we begin this agenda item, if anyone believes they have a conflict of interest, now would be the time to declare it. Does anybody have a conflict of interest? See, hearing none. The clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Chart Development Limited to amend CD1 826 bylaw to permit the development of a 21-story mixed-use building with commercial space on the ground floor. a private 37-space childcare facility, and a 168 rental units. A floor space ratio of 8.5 and a height of 62 meters, or 203 feet, with additional height for rooftop amenity space are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referral to the public hearing: 12 pieces of correspondence in support and 6 pieces of correspondence in opposition. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Thank you, Clerk. This is now the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. There'll be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the registered speakers list. We have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Would the applicant team like to present the application if in attendance? Oh, we'll just go with staff application. I see is up on the thing.
Okay. Good evening, Acting Mayor, Council, and members of the public. My name is Sarah Cranston, rezoning planner for this application, which is being considered under the Broadway plan. The site is shown in red and is comprised of one parcel on the south side of Broadway at Ontario Street in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood. The site is currently zoned CD1 and is occupied by a vacant 3-story commercial building. There are no tenancies on the site, and the city's tenant relocation and protection policy does not apply. The surrounding context consists of commercial, mixed use, and residential uses. The area is well served by public transit, bike routes, parks, childcare centers, and community facilities. The future Main Street SkyTrain station is 1 block east of the subject site. The Broadway plan is the rezoning enabling policy for this application. The site is located in the Broadway Shoulder Area East sub-area. The MBSB sub-area allows consideration of rezonings for 100% rental housing. In this location, the plan requires ground floor retail or service uses along Broadway and a minimum of 1 level of non-residential uses above the ground floor. Up to 30 stories can be considered at this location or to the underside of the Queen Elizabeth Park View Cone 3.2.4 if more restrictive. A maximum density of 8.5 FSR can be considered. A rezoning application was first approved for this site in October 2020 for a 12-story office building shown in the image on the left. The site was rezoned to CD1, but no building was constructed. There were tenants on the site at the time of the rezoning application who were eligible for protections and compensated under the tenant relocation and protection policy. Following the successful rezoning of the site, the ownership changed and a CD1 amendment application was submitted in August 2023 for a 21-story mixed-use building. A resubmission was received by staff in April 2024 to include private childcare and comply with the use requirements of the Broadway plan. This revised proposal, shown on the image on the right, is what is being considered this evening. The proposal is to amend the site's existing CD1 zoning to allow a 21-story mixed-use rental building. The proposal includes 168 rental units, commercial uses on the ground floor, and a private 37-space childcare facility on the second level. An FSR of 8.5 and a height of 203 feet, plus additional height for rooftop amenity are proposed. A public bike share station is also proposed on the site's Ontario Street frontage. East Side average market rents are shown on this table, as well as the monthly cost of home ownership. Based on recent data, rents for market units would range from about $1,700 for a studio unit to $3,200 for a 3-bedroom unit. In comparison, home ownership costs about $200,000 a month for a studio unit, or up to $5,500 a month for a 3-bedroom unit. Market rental housing will provide more affordable options than average home ownership costs. 2 virtual question and answer periods were held this year, the first for the original rezoning submission and the second for the resubmission, which includes childcare. A total of 69 pieces of correspondence were received. Support was expressed for rental housing, height, density, and the location of the building, as well as for childcare and bike share. Concerns were related to height and density, neighborhood fit, housing affordability, traffic safety, and parking. In response to public feedback regarding height, density, and neighborhood fit, staff note that the proposal is compliant with the plan for height and density and to create new rental housing on arterial roads close to transit. Regarding housing affordability, all proposed units will be rental, secured via a housing agreement, which provides housing security to future tenants and is more affordable than home ownership. Rent escalations during a tenancy are limited to the increases authorized by the Residential Tenancy Act. Regarding parking and traffic safety, the proposal will be required to comply with the parking bylaw and submit a TDM plan at the time of the development permit. Transportation conditions have been included to improve traffic and safety in the area. The site is well served with transportation options, and staff expect to see an overall reduction in vehicle trips with the completion of the new Broadway subway line. The public benefits accruing from this application are the 168 rental units. The DCL and public art contributions are estimated to be approximately $5.4 million. The site was subject to a CAC review and no CAC is expected. In conclusion, this proposal aligns with the Broadway plan, advances the city's rental housing and childcare targets, and has no tenant displacement. Staff recommend approval of this application subject to the conditions in Appendix B of the report. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Would the applicant team like to present the application if in attendance?
Thank you, Acting Mayor and Council, for considering the proposal this evening. My name is Byron Chard of Chard Developments. This property is less than 200 meters away from the future Main Street SkyTrain station. Chard is extremely familiar and passionate about Mount Pleasant, with already 4 completed projects in the area, including 2 residential and 2 light industrial and office projects. The proposal is for an 8.5 FSR building, which includes a 21-story mixed-use rental building consisting of 168 homes, commercial on the ground floor, and a private daycare on the second floor. Charter originally purchased this property based on the 7.5 FSR previously rezoned for an office building. As the market began to change and the Broadway plan was approved, Charter saw the opportunity to pivot the project for residential use. Under the existing office CD zone, the podium was wider than we would typically do for a residential, which has caused almost bowling alley type homes. Charter saw the opportunity to reduce the width of the podium and place this density on the tower, while this also then created the opportunity to have the daycare on the second floor with the outdoor space. We saw this as a win-win for the community as well as the project. This is Charter's 5th daycare, which we've incorporated into our rental developments. Charter has taken this strategic approach to attract young families into our projects and help create or enhance a 15-minute neighborhood. Charter is passionate about expanding the City of Vancouver's secured rental market housing. As someone who rents only a few blocks away from the site, I'm excited to start construction of these homes as soon as possible. Thank you for considering the proposal this evening.
Great, thank you, Byron Chard. Okay, at this point, are there any questions from council to staff or the applicant team, noting this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant? Okay, seeing none, this is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers to this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chambers, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. And we're now going to hear from the public. Clerk, do we have any speakers in person or on the phone?
Speaker number 1 is on the line.
Perfect. And apologies, I don't have the speakers list in front of me. So, speaker, if you can let us know your name and if you're a resident of Vancouver and if you support or do not support this application, please.
Hi. Yes, can I come here?
I can hear you, yeah.
Awesome. My name is Kate O'Neill. I am a resident of Vancouver, specifically Marine Crescent, and I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my roommate Alexavia, who also lives in the neighborhood. We're both strongly in support of this project and are really excited by what this represents for the neighborhood and increased density around the new Broadway station. Thank you.
Great, short and sweet. Thank you. Clerk, do we have any other speakers in person or on the line?
Just checking.
No other speakers on the line.
Okay, thank you. In that case, this is the third and final call for speakers. If there are speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445#. That phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. And we are now going to take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers. All right, council. It's our 5 minutes. And great, we have quorum. All right, clerks, do we have any further speakers in person or on the line?
No new speakers on the line.
Okay, then. Assuming none in person, seeing as there are no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. Seeing as there are few or no public comments received after 5 p.m., I'm now closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant team have any closing comments?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I have no closing comments.
Thank you. Does staff have any closing comments?
No closing comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Does council have any questions for staff? Noting that no additional questions of the applicant are permitted, Councillor Carr for staff. Councillor Carr, I see you on the queue and your clock is ticking.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have any questions. I just seeing that no one else was on the queue for questions, I was going to move the recommendations and wanted to make some comments.
Great. So we have a mover, a seconder.
Second.
Second by Councillor Montague. Please go ahead, Councillor Carr, with any comments.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to really acknowledge Chard for actually this project, especially in terms of there was a project on the books. It had been rezoned. They picked it up, and they moved it, I think, into a really good project for this area. I'm very happy, especially around the fact that it's not as high as it could have been, but it definitely is supplying housing and particularly childcare. And I'm very happy that in fact the representative of Char did let us know that they've already completed 4 projects in the area, 2 residential and 2 commercial. So they've got a good track record of completing the projects that have been rezoned. I love the fact that they stated they're really interested in attracting young families and enhancing the 15-minute neighborhood or complete communities, which is in the Vancouver plan. Appreciate those comments, and I'm happy to provide my support for this.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Carr. Seeing no further comments on the queue, Clerk, can you please take us to the voting screen? Council, please register your vote on the Creston.
Chair, can I have a vote assist in favor, please? It's Councillor Kirby-Young.
Oh, hi, Councillor Kirby-Young. You were able to participate? Great.
I've been listening.
Okay.
Thank you.
And once those votes are in, the clerk will read out the results. Hi, clerk. We have all the votes in?
Chair, we're just having a technical issue with the Crestron. Just one moment.
Sure thing. Clerk, if it's more expeditious, I'm sure we could do a vote count off. Okay, that passes with none in opposition. Thanks, clerk. All right, thank you, council. Moving on, agenda item number 3, CD1 rezoning 1726 West 11th Avenue. Before we begin this agenda item, if anyone believes they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anybody have a conflict to disclose? Hearing none, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by Sightline Properties to rezone 1726 West 11th Avenue from RM-3 Residential District to CD-1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 19-story and 20-story mixed-use building with a 3-story podium containing 283 rental units, of which 20% are to be secured at below-market rent, with commercial space on the ground floor. A floor space ratio of 6.8 and a height of 63.2 meters, or 207 feet, with additional height for mechanical appurtenances are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referral to the public hearing: 16 pieces of correspondence in support and 7 pieces of correspondence in opposition. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Great, thank you. This is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the speakers list. The phone number will be posted on X and made available on the live stream. There will be an opportunity for speakers and for new speakers and missed speakers to be added at the end of the registered speakers list. We have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Over to you, staff.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Leif Kavissers, rezoning planner for this application under the Broadway plan. The subject site, shown in red, is made up of 5 lots and developed with the rental residential building constructed in 1971. The existing zoning is RM3. The property contains existing rental residential uses for which the city's tenant relocation and protection policy applies. 53 of the tenants are eligible under the city's tenant relocation and protection policy for the Broadway plan, which includes enhanced tenant protection requirements. This site is located within the Fairview South Area B of the Broadway plan that sets out provisions for 20 stories in height and a density of up to 6.5 for rental housing. The plan expects a maximum of 2 towers on this block. The site is also within Tier 3, or 800 meters, of the transit-oriented development legislation. As the Broadway plan allows for more height and density, the application is being considered under the Broadway plan. This application was submitted in October of 2023, with revised heights provided in October of 2024. It proposes 283 rental units, with 20% of those and 20% of the floor area for below-market rental units. The building density is 6.8 FSR, with a height of 207 feet. Underground parking is provided with access off the rear lane. This slide is a comparison between market rental and homeownership costs on the west side. Public consultation included a question and answer period, which saw a total of 152 submissions. Support was expressed for the density, the inclusion of small commercial space, and the design of the building. Some respondents noted concerns related to the height, density not fitting with the existing context, concerns related to affordability of the rental apartments, and the addition of commercial use at this site. In response to these concerns, staff note that the heights align with the plan. With respect to affordability, 20% of the residential floor area is to be at below market rental rates. The commercial unit is intended to be locally serving and is not anticipated to generate significant traffic. The development is also required to comply with the parking bylaw, prioritizing accessible visitor, loading, and bicycle spaces. It's within close proximity to frequent transit and cycling networks, and transportation demand management plan will be required to further alleviate traffic impacts. The applicant is contributing 20% of the residential units as below market rental units. The total DCL and public art contributions combined are an estimated $3.5 million. In conclusion, staff recommend approval, subject to Appendix B, to advance the city's rental housing targets. This concludes my presentation. Staff and the applicant team are available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Leave. Would the applicant team like to make a presentation if they're in attendance?
Hi, Acting Mayor Fry and Council. My name is Jamie Vaughn. I'm with Sightline Properties. We do not have any further information or presentation, but myself, my architect, and my landscape architect are here to answer any questions anyone may have.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. Okay, Council, if there are any questions from you for staff or the applicant team, noting that this is the only opportunity for you to ask questions of the applicant, and I see Councillor Carr on the queue. Councillor Carr.
Yeah, thanks, Acting Mayor. So just a couple of questions. One, I noted that there are 2 towers, obviously. It's a 5-lot assembly. How many lots are there entirely? This probably is for staff, but how many lots are there entirely on this block? Like it's 5 out of how many lots, or 5? Is it 5 lots total anyway for the block?
And while you're contemplating that, Councillor Kirby-Young, I need you to turn your video on, please.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Kirby-Young. There are 5 lots in total.
Councillor Carr.
Oh, sorry. I couldn't see you. Yeah, there are
Am I video? Yes, that's true. Well, anyway.
I can answer that if you guys want. So our site consists of 5 lots. To the west of us, there's another 4 buildings, which I think equates to about 250 feet of frontage.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Back to staff. When we contemplated the towers, 2 towers, basically similar to the West End. Did we at that time in the Broadway plan talk about tower separation? I'm sorry, I can't remember the debate on that, or the direction we provided around if those towers should be separated or not.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. We have John here to answer that question.
Hi, Councillor John Grottenberg, Broadway Plan Team. Yes, in crafting the Broadway Plan policies for the residential areas, we expected a minimum tower separation of 80 feet between residential towers.
And what is the separation on these 2 towers?
It complies with that.
Oh, great. Okay, good to know. So if there's a large enough assembly, it can be one project, but that does guarantee that that tower separation. Wonderful. And the question I have is around the small commercial spaces. I'm wondering, maybe the applicant can let me know if, like, what's the expectation of the size of that frontage? I know that was a very important issue in Chinatown for keeping small business in the neighborhood. So what are the width of those units, or the size of those units, and what kind of tenants are, kind of hoping to get, I guess?
Councillor Carr, we have about 50 feet of frontage on West 11th, and I think about 40 feet of frontage for the CRU on Pine Street. In terms of the actual tenants that we foresee going in this space, I mean, we obviously haven't got that far in the application, but I would say some sort of smaller coffee shop is really, I mean, I don't think we're going to have a ton of option in this space, but I would say a smaller coffee shop is something that we'd be targeting.
Great. Okay. But resident serving, or local area serving, right?
Yep, correct.
Great. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Carr. Councillor Montague.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just a quick question for the applicant team. I'm just wondering, there's 50, I think the report says 53 out of the units are eligible under the TRPP, and I'm just wondering how your plan is progressing with tenant relocation, and how you're finding that process, and what challenges you're having right now.
Oh, good question. Yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of touch points with the tenants. We've hired a tenant relocation specialist who's kind of dealing with the tenants. And so I think the process is going fine. I think they understand what's going on. To be honest, if I'm completely honest, the tenant relocation plan is in big favor of the tenant. They are going to be well compensated for living in this building and eventually leaving for a 2.5-year process and then having the right of first refusal to come back. So I think the process is in their favor for sure. And it's certainly a big burden on our performa, but we obviously understand we have 50 tenants in there. They need to be taken care of as we redevelop. So I think so far it's been good. People are receptive, and obviously you're going to get some people that want to stay in their home and never move. But the reality is we need to densify. So
Okay. And you've had you're hiring an outside agency to do that on your behalf.
yeah, I mean it's quite a big undertaking. There's quite a lot of policy and procedure to follow. So yeah, we've hired Somerville that's been handling that since day one, and they've been great, and they have a great interface with our tenants. So
Okay, perfect. Thanks. I appreciate that response. That's it for me, Chair.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Montague. And I was inclined towards a similar question myself, but I think that answer satisfied me as well. Happy to hear that the TRPP is effective in this case. Okay, seeing no further councillors on the queue, this is the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of this speakers list. The phone number has been posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of this speakers list. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. And we're now going to hear from the public. Clerk, do we have any speakers on the line or in person to provide comments on this item?
Yes, I believe we have speaker number 1 in the chamber.
Great, thank you. And speaker, if you could please give us your full name, whether or not you're support or opposed to the recommendations, and if you are a resident of Vancouver, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Acting Chair and Council. My name's Stephen Boas. I am a resident of Vancouver, and I'm opposed to this rezoning. I work in Fairview, and actually the site is about a 3-minute walk away from the office. There are 59 units of rental in this building, and rather than tearing down buildings like this one for redevelopment, these really should be preserved. And I will note that the tenant relocation plan does not provide a like-for-like replacement of units. Next slide. So around Pine Street and West 11th, there are actually 2 additional rezoning sites, and both of them are one lot in on the other side of Pine. And I really think that the cumulative impacts of sites like these should be taken into account in any analysis by staff. Next slide. So the ground floor drawings show a single small CRU, or commercial retail unit, in the corner around Pine and 11th. And this is just kind of one half of the site. There's a mirror image of the other tower. And really, does this justify an extra 0.3 in floor space ratio for a site of this size? Because I think this is very small. Another detail I noticed that there is a, quote, nanny suite. And there's actually 2 of them on the mirror image side. And is this really an amenity? And are there any windows? Because I don't see the markers for the windows, or even windows for the 1 bedroom at the bottom of the screen just below this nanny suite. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk about neighborliness. Now, here is the site right adjacent there to the existing rental building, and you're looking at providing about a 20-meter or 6.1 meter setback to the property line. And I don't really consider this to be neighborly. Usually you provide a 40-foot setback because you're anticipating another tower, and with these Broadway plan amendments, there is actually going to be a possibility for another tower, even on the tower constrained sites like this one. So I think there is an insufficient setback, and it is not very neighborly. The other thing to note is there's another tower on the mirror image of this, and people can essentially look in from one tower on the east side to the west side, directly into bedrooms from the balconies in both directions. There's not a lot of privacy. Next slide. I'm going to raise the concern about public safety. Well, the applicant has another project in Dunbar at West 41st and Collingwood Street. And in August, there was a tragic fire there. A crane collapse that closed West 41st. And I'm really concerned about what, how safe would a construction site be here given this applicant's track record. And I'm also wondering, how can a steel train or crane like this collapse in the first place? Next slide. You're looking at approving a rezoning like this. It just adds to demolition, to displacement of, you're moving renters out. There are huge environmental impacts of landfilling perfectly good buildings. It is, if we go to the next slide, this is a rental building on the other side of the block. And as I've mentioned, there are proposed changes in the Broadway plan amendments that could enable another building on this block, even if it is exempt under certain conditions. And we've seen applications come in with, in other blocks that have already been constrained with numbers of towers of blocks, and it's planning staff say, well, it's not compliant. They're asking for an additional tower. So here is the rental building on the other side of the block, and if you're setting precedents, well, what can happen to the tenants here? What are the impacts of construction on people living in the area, in the buildings around it? And the city gets nothing out of all of the property appreciation. There's a lot of real estate deals that have been made. There's no property transfer tax that the city collects, unlike a municipality of Toronto, where they actually do get a cut, but that's very small in terms of the land lift. There's really no CAC, so you're essentially giving away density. You're displacing renters, and you're providing a pretty dark, bleak, high-rise environment where you have a human-scale environment now. So it's very poor urbanism and a poor fit. So I think a lot of mistakes have been made in the Broadway plan, and you really need to pause the plan rather than double down on it. So acting mayor and council, I will urge you not to go ahead with this proposal as put forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. That was well timed. Okay, clerks, do we have any other speakers in the chamber or online?
Yes, we have speaker number 2 in the chamber. Louis Villegas.
Great, thanks. And Louis, if you can, well, we got your name, but let us know if you're a resident of Vancouver or if you support or oppose the recommendation.
Yes, my name is Louis Villegas. I've been a resident in Vancouver since 1985. Next slide, please. I have completed architecture, urban, and planning projects in the US and Canada, including drawing the concept plan for the Olympic Village and designing Chinatown Square in Vancouver. Next slide, please. The housing crisis chart shows in dotted black lines the build-out for SkyTrain. The blue line shows the cost of houses rising to the roof, through the roof, and the orange line shows the condo prices going over the moon. How did we get here? Next slide, please. The housing crisis was triggered by policy, giving away 10 to 24 times additional density to the developer cabal has raised the cost of land. And what economists are in consensus about is that the increase in the cost of housing is all in the land. The sad thing is that an FSR increase of just 1 or 2 would have sufficed. Next, please. I'm speaking today against this tower going up in my neighborhood. Good urbanism is not one size fits all. Council must stop colonizing the neighborhoods with towers. There are far, far better options. Next, please. The enemy is inside this hallowed chamber. When developers can build 10 to 15 times more space on the same parcel of land, the result is a foregone conclusion. The price of land skyrockets by more than 10 or 15 times. This is not good urbanism. This is woke urbanism, Next slide, please. The top row has the site in question. The developer cabal here is going to get 10 times the neighborhood density, build 1/3 the necessary parking, dumping 150 cars curbside along the equivalent of 5 neighborhood blocks. The development fee giveaway on this project is $10 million. Yet tonight, people will be sleeping on the street with the temperature dipping down to 4 degrees in our city. Council, there are much, much better options. Next, please. What does the housing crisis mean? Well, it means that the 20% units renting for 20% below market will accomplish zero affordability. And the reason for this is that as the prices are just going to keep going up and up and up as long as government keeps permitting tower densities. Next, please. The woke planning uses land use to max profiteering from the development cabal, max revenues to government, and make homeowners into renters. Next. Meanwhile, the fundamentals are either ignored or not understood. Building towers next to houses is the worst joke in urbanism. You destroy the neighborhood and you destroy the values of the people that are living there. So towers and houses do not mix. Next, please. Developers are selling studios as 1 bedrooms. They are selling 1 bedrooms as 2 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms as 3. This is unit shrinkage. It's yet another giveaway to the developer cabal. These tiny, puny units are unlivable. Next. On the economic side, what we're seeing as a result of the housing crisis is a shell game. When housing costs double, people are caught in the game. More money circulating in the money circulating in the local economy is cut in half when twice as much of the household income is being put towards housing. As a result, the mom and pop shops close, jobs go begging, and our city is gutted because the tower revenues are all reinvested elsewhere. Next. The right plan for Vancouver is obvious. Towers downtown, human scale in the neighborhoods. No land left, no housing crisis. Next. Is it corruption or is it like lack of capacity that puts towers next to houses in the neighborhoods? Next. It's actually a trick question. It's both corruption and lack of capacity. The learning here for staff is that good cities present as a family of neighborhoods. Next. And towers belong downtown. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you, Louis. Clerks, do we have anybody else on the line or in person?
Speaker 3, Sue Fenyvesi, is on the line, I believe.
Great.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, hi, Sue. And if you could give us your name, whether you're a resident of Vancouver or if you support or oppose the recommendation.
Chair Fry.
Yes.
It's Councillor Kirby. I wonder, I was just listening to the last speaker's quite colorful language, and I wonder if you could remind speakers to convey their point perhaps with passion, but not with denigrating people and using words like corruption and cabal and...
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kirby Young. I note that they included their comments with that, but I would caution speakers
I
that
believe
language like corruption. Yeah.
I think the language, those particular terms were peppered more than once throughout the presentation, so I just raised that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And just a reminder to all speakers and participants, our standing code of conduct and for participation in these meetings does seek to avoid that kind of language. Okay, and sorry, Sue, for the interruption, but you now have 5 minutes, and if you could let us know your full name, if you're a resident of Vancouver, and if you support or oppose the recommendation.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Acting Mayor and Council. My name is actually Sue Fenyvesi, and I am a resident of Vancouver. I've lived in the Fairview, Mount Pleasant area for 23 years in the same apartment. I'm opposed to the present application for the redevelopment of 1726 West 11th, and here's why. The proposed towers are going to be 19 and 20 stories atop a 4-story podium with possible daycare, which is needed, restaurant and cafes, which are not needed. There are already many vacant commercial units along Broadway that are empty. According to the Vancouver School report that is has been attached here. They're saying that Henry Hudson and Kitsilano Secondary will be operating under capacity by 2031. I know for a fact my friends right now are having trouble getting their kids into school, into daycares, into any extracurriculars. It's impossible. So I do not believe that that report is correct. I'm concerned about the lack of low rent housing because we keep talking about affordable and people are confused as what affordable really means. Tenants are paying over $2,500 for a basic one bedroom. That's not affordable. Many of the tenants being displaced by these new towers have been in the same units for years and their rents are under $15,000 for one bedroom, which isn't just unheard of in Vancouver, but it's great. I mean, I live in a one bedroom and it's definitely below market value. And if I was displaced, there's no way that I'd be able to afford it. They'd be putting me into a studio and I'm with a partner, so that's not going to work. Excuse me. Adding more expensive rental stock will not solve the housing problem. Adding reasonably priced housing would. I wonder where the baristas will be living that work in all these ground floor cafes that we seem to think are really necessary. They'll have to drive in from Chilliwack. Excuse me. The building at 1726 West 11th will provide 283 units and only 57 will be below market. These will be much smaller than the original units. A future studio apartment will be comparable in price to now one bedroom. So a one bedroom was less than 600 square feet, too small for a family. They should be building 50% for the median income individual in these buildings. They're only providing 20%. They're not even actually giving you the units of the amount of units that are in the building. There seem to be always too short. So if it's a 57 unit, 53 people living in there, I think there's only 51 units that will be available for people to move into. I've lived in the same apartment for 20 years, and I live in my rent is extremely affordable, and I'm not ready to pay $3,000 for a one bedroom, nor do I want to live in a studio apartment for $2,000. This building will only provide enough parking for half the units in the building. In a city that rains over 6 months of the year, they are hoping parents bike their kids to work, kids to school, to the schools that are not even in the same catchment. Parking is also an issue in Fairview, and with half the tenants adding to the already congested area, we won't find parking anywhere. And what are the protection plans for the tenants? Who's to say that those will be honored? How are we trying to help relocate tenants? What does well compensated mean? Why would or how would the other old tenant want to move back after being displaced for 2.5 years? I oppose this build. The developer needs to go back to the drawing board and come up with something more in keeping with the residential feel of the neighborhood, and also supply more low-cost housing to accommodate the residents that have been displaced. Pause the plan, rethink the Broadway plan. Thank you.
And thank you, Susan. Okay, so those are the speakers on the list. Clerks, do we have anybody else on the line or in person?
We do not.
Okay, in that case, I don't know how I managed to lose my place on the script here. Okay, in that case, this is the third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445# before the close of the list. Phone number was posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chambers may please come forward to the podium. And we will now take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers.
Speaker 9769, this is City Moderator. Checking, are you speaking to item 3 on the public hearing today?
Right, I believe that's our 5 minutes. We have quorum, clerks? Yeah, looks like we do. All right. Oh, do we have quorum?
We do, Chair Fry.
Oh, okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm having trouble multitasking on my tiny screen here. Okay. Thank you. All right, so do we have any additional speakers?
There are no additional speakers.
Okay, seeing as we have no additional speakers, the speakers list is now closed. And seeing as there are few or no public comments received after 5 p.m., now closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant team have any closing comments?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Fry. I do want to address one or two things. I know I probably should just be quiet, but that's challenging for me. It sounds like Lewis has all the answers. I mean, I do want to echo what Councillor Kirby Young said, as there were numerous adjectives and accusations made by Lewis that I think are totally unacceptable. In terms of the first speaker mentioning concerns over safety due to the fire in Dunbar, I also think this was a very inappropriate and insensitive comment. This was probably one of the most devastating times for me personally to go through something like this. Never in my life did I think something like this would happen with one of my projects, and we certainly are diligent in how we treat safety at our job sites. We've hired Graham Construction, who's a GC on the project and have a great safety record. We'll probably never know what happened in the fire, but you can be rest assured that this kind of fluky accident had nothing to do with negligence on the part of Sightline. So I do want to make that clear. I do take that comment personally because we do care, and we have certainly gone through a tough time. And I do want to quickly say I appreciate all the emails and phone calls from mayor and council supporting us through this challenging time. But we're excited to build this project and continue building rental housing for the community.
Okay, thanks, Jamie. And appreciate your desire to defend your reputation there. And I was going to caution you to stick to the project, but I think you needed that latitude to defend your reputation. Does staff have any closing comments?
Thank you. We have no closing comments.
Great, thank you. Council, any questions for staff? Seeing none. Clerk, did we receive any additional public comments since the close of public comments?
We did not.
Okay, great. We can proceed to debate. Council, it's time to make a decision on the application. Do we have a mover for the recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Kirby Young, second by Councillor Meisner. Council members, is there any discussion? I see Councillor Carr on the queue. Councillor Carr.
Oh, actually, I've been on the queue the whole time. I'm not sure if I just could never get off, but I am happy to make a few comments and really, I think that I want to first of all address the issue that was raised by the speaker, and I'm happy that you did address it, or it was addressed by you, the chair, and also by the applicant. Because my memory of the fire on 41st Avenue was that there was an incredible wind, and climate change had a part to play in that fire, that conflagration there. I really just want to say that the project itself, it does comply. I was happy to have asked the questions and received the answer that it'll be 2 towers on that block. And just for the record, make it very clear that as a resident of the West End, the model for Broadway plan really was the West End, and the idea of the tower in the park, 2 towers maximum per block, that was many decades ago that was established in the West End to protect livability. There are single-family homes in the West End. There are not that many left because it has become, of course, a much more dense neighborhood over the decades. But there still are family homes, smaller scale buildings, lower rise apartments, medium and up to 6-story. And it's truly an incredible neighborhood with very friendly neighborliness amongst the residents. So I don't understand that thinking that towers mean it's not a friendly neighborhood, or there's no neighborliness, or that it is not as livable. Because the West End is probably one of the most livable neighborhoods in all of North America in terms of the people that live there, the incredible amenities that are available. You can get anything you want within a walking, very short walking distance. 15 minutes is what we say for a livable neighborhood, but definitely we have it in spades there. So I'm hoping that people will spend some time in the West End and appreciate that it's not the same as a single family neighborhood for sure, but the disparaging comments about that kind of density not being livable, I think, are just simply incorrect. So I will be supporting this project. Thank staff for working through this and the applicant for the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Carr. Seeing no further councillors on the queue, I'm going to call the vote. Now, Clerk, would you like to take us to a voting screen, or should we do this the old school way?
Thanks, Chair. We're going to try the voting screen.
Okay.
Chair, it's Councillor Kirby-Young. Can I have a vote assist in favor, please?
You certainly may.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Councillor Kirby-Young.
Apologies, Chair Fry. The Crestron is not working. Are we able to do a call and response vote?
That sounds fine. So Councillor Kirby-Young has already indicated they are in favor. Councillor Carr.
In favor.
Councillor Montague.
In favor.
Councillor Klassen.
In favor.
Thank you. Councillor Zhou.
In favor.
Do we have Councillor Meisner?
In favor.
Great, and I am in favor, so that passes unanimously. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Clerk. All right. Moving on. Item number 4, CD1 rezoning, 1365 West 12th Avenue. Now, before we begin this agenda item, if anybody believes they have a conflict of interest, now is the time to declare it. Does anybody have a conflict to disclose? Seeing no one, the clerk will now read the application and summary of correspondence received.
This is an application by 1343153 BC Limited, represented by Urban Strategies Incorporated, to rezone 1365 West 12th Avenue from RM-3 Residential District to CD-1 Comprehensive Development District to permit the development of a 20-story mixed-use building containing 97 rental units with 20% of the residential floor area for below-market rental units, and commercial space on the ground floor. A floor space ratio of 6.8 and a height of 63.1 meters, or 207 feet, with additional height for rooftop amenity space are proposed. The General Manager of Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability recommends approval, subject to conditions set out in the summary and recommendation. The following correspondence has been received since referral to the public hearing: 4 pieces of correspondence in support and 5 pieces of correspondence in opposition. This represents all correspondence received up to 5 p.m. today.
Great, thank you, Clerk. Okay, this is the first call for speakers. Any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445#, before the close of this speakers list. The phone number has been posted on X and made available on the live stream. There will be an opportunity for new speakers and missed speakers to be added to the end of the speakers registered list. We do have staff from Planning, Urban Design, and Sustainability here to present the application. Over to you, staff.
Good evening, Chair and Council. My name is Lauren Whitney, planner for this rezoning application being considered under the Broadway Plan. The site, outlined in red, is mid-block on West 12th Avenue between Hemlock and Birch Streets. The surrounding context is residential, with commercial buildings along Granville Street to the west. The existing site is occupied by one 19-unit residential building, for which the tenant relocation and protection policy applies. The site is well served by transit, with future South Granville subway station, bus service, and bikeways nearby. Several parks, schools, childcare facilities, and community spaces are also located in the area. The proposal is in the Fairview South Area B of the Broadway Plan, which anticipates market rental buildings up to 20 stories, with 20% of the residential floor area secured at below market rates, and a maximum density of 6.5 FSR. Minor increases in height and density can be considered for ground-level local serving retail. The minimum frontage for tower sites is 150 feet. However, lesser frontages may be considered at the discretion of the Director of Planning. The original rezoning application was submitted in December of 2022. The revised proposal being considered today was submitted in July of 2024 to address public and staff comments. This application is for a building height of 20 stories, density of 6.8 FSR, and 97 rental units, with 20% provided at below market rates. Local serving retail is on the ground floor, accounting for an additional 0.3 FSR over the maximum 6.5 FSR in the plan. Loading and 4 levels of underground parking are accessible from the lane. This site has a frontage of 100 feet, which is being considered at the discretion of the Director of Planning. As I will discuss, the form of development has been managed to ensure a contextual fit. Due to the narrow site frontage, the proposal does not include a podium. However, setbacks have been provided to ensure neighborliness to the surrounding buildings. Outdoor amenity space is provided on the rooftop, and improvements to the public realm are proposed along West 12th Avenue through the provision of local serving retail and outdoor seating. The placement of the proposed tower permits adequate setbacks for a future tower to the north and to existing towers on the block. The proposal also exceeds the required above and below grade setbacks from the front property line, enabling the retention of 2 existing mature trees. Rental housing in Vancouver is provided along a continuum. This table compares the monthly cost of below market rental and market rental on the west side of the city and the average household income they serve. 91 submissions were received during the public consultation period. Support was expressed for the density, supply, and range of housing types and tenures, and proximity to rapid transit. Concerns were related to the displacement of existing tenants, the scale of the proposal in comparison to the neighborhood, and perceived impacts to the community. In response to public comments, staff note that the proposed height, scale, uses, and proportion of below market rental units are consistent with the plan. The proposal aligns with policy to deliver much-needed market and below-market rental to the area and is compliant with the tenant relocation and protection policy. The public benefits from this application are the secured market and below-market rental housing units. In addition, the proposal will contribute over $1.3 million in development cost levies. A citywide DCL waiver has been requested by the applicant. In summary, staff have concluded that this proposal is consistent with the Broadway Plan and support the application subject to conditions in Appendix B. Staff and the applicant team are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, if the applicant team would like to present, if they're in attendance. We have the applicant team there.
Good evening. Yes. Hi, it's David Wong. I'm the architect for this project. Really have not much more to add to the application, but we'll take questions. Thank you.
Well, and thank you, David Wong. Nice to hear from you on this. Council, this is an opportunity to ask staff or the applicant team any questions, noting this is the only opportunity for council to ask questions of the applicant. Seeing Councillor Carr on the queue. Councillor Carr?
Yeah, thank you. A couple of questions. First question, I noted in the staff introduction to this project, it talked about local serving retail on the ground floor. I'm just wondering how we can require local serving retail. I mean, I've heard that it's not possible for us, for example, to want in a single family neighborhood to put a grocery store on a lot. So what are the rules around ensuring that there is local serving retail, or what are the, what kind of rules do we have around that?
In this Tess Monroe, rezoning planner. In this context, the commercial is optional. It is meant to be local serving and for small businesses, and to supplement the regional serving uses along Granville Street. So in this case, there is an additional 0.3 FSR of density that is permitted to encourage local serving businesses on this site, but it's not required. So it's incentivized through FSR.
That is interesting. How many times have we done that? That's the first time I've heard of us offering, increased density for or FSR for local serving.
It was done in Broadway plan as a whole. I'm not sure if we have done it in other areas. I think this is the first time that's happening in Broadway.
Yeah, let's just say it's the first time I've heard this. It's very, very interesting. It's an interesting tool. I have a couple of questions for the applicant as well. Is the applicant at the mic? I'm sorry, I'm not there, so I can't see.
I believe the applicant's online.
Oh, online. Oh, great. Thank you, Chair. So I have, first of all, a question about the retaining of 2 existing mature trees. Is that, how many of all the trees is that? Like, I'm not sure.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that these 2 trees, they're cedar trees, and they're Cedar Deodoris, and they're wonderful trees. And I have to admit, I have a bias because I am a botanist, and we did everything we can to save the trees, even though that we were able to take it down. So we designed the whole building so it's set back from the trees. We cantilevered the ground plane, the exterior patio, so that people can enjoy the outdoors without harming the tree roots. And we also moved the parking wall back towards the north to allow accommodating the existing trees. So we did everything we can to save these 2 beautiful cedars.
That's great. I mean, given our desire to increase the tree canopy and respond to the climate crisis, that's awesome, and it really does help create a much more beautiful neighborhood. So, or retain the beauty in the neighborhood. Actually, that's it. I'm finished with my questions, but appreciate the answers.
Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, great. Thank you. And seeing no further questions from councillors, I'll now make the second call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, please call toll-free 1-833-353-8610, followed by participant code 1061445#. Before the close of the speakers list, phone number has been posted on X and made available on the live stream. Any speakers in the council chamber, please come forward to the podium before the close of the speakers list. Speakers will have 5 minutes to make their comments and should limit their comments to the merits of the report being considered. And before we go to public speakers, I do want to make a couple of statements. I wasn't expecting to chair tonight, so I'm not there, obviously. But I do want to highlight that under our procedural bylaws 7.8, Article B, there can't be applause from the audience, and I wasn't aware that was happening, but I've been since informed that there was applause and comments from the audience. That's not appropriate. Also under 7.8C, we do have a request that speakers refrain from what's referred to as improper conduct. And that can include expressions that are obscene, promote hatred, violence, or are defamatory. So I want to caution against defamatory comments that will be ruled as improper conduct, because this council is committed to ensuring that everyone participating in council meetings or public hearings is treated fairly and with respect, and creating that safe and inclusive environment for the public, staff, and council is a shared responsibility. So as chair, I'm gonna have to manage this meeting in a respectful space and really ask attendees to refrain from applause or any of those kind of interruptions, and to respect issues around defamatory language. So with that, we'll invite members of the public to speak. And clerks, do we have
Yes.
speakers in the audience?
Speaker number 1, Stephen Bohus, is in the chamber.
Great, thank you. Stephen, and just let us know if you are in support or opposed, and of course, resident of Vancouver.
Thank you, Chair. Just give me a second. I'm getting set up here. And yeah, it's a little bit unsettling not to have anyone in chambers, but I know you're online and listening intently, so I will do my best. So yeah, my name's Stephen Boas. I'm a Vancouver resident, and I'm opposed to this rezoning. I work in Fairview and South Granville. The existing building is on a 100-foot lot, and it appears to be well maintained from the outside. Originally under the draft Broadway plan brought to council in 2022, this site would have been ineligible for tower rezoning as it did not have a 150-foot frontage. That was of course changed by amendment after all speakers had spoken. And I'm also wondering if tomorrow's amendments could weaken renter protections if they do come up. Next slide. Here are the 2 large trees, and there's actually a tree on the street, a large street tree that would be removed. And apparently these trees would be preserved, but I'm really concerned. You know, I have a degree in landscape architecture. I studied trees, and as you can clearly see, the tree canopies extend well above the existing 3-story rental building. And these would need severe pruning of trees and possibly the root ball, perhaps leaving the trees dead or in a stunned state. Next slide. Well, there are already 2 existing towers on the block on the side towards Birch. And the thing to note is that there is a base grade survey exploring the redevelopment of the 2 adjoining properties to the east at 1355 West and 1305 West 12th. And given that knowledge, you would not be anticipating a 6-story building beside this site, but you'd be expecting a 40 or 80-foot tower separation. And currently, the proposed tower separation is grossly inadequate. You would have to have 40 feet in from the property line. Next slide. The property line, or the property across the street is visible, and that's 1364 West 11th, and that has 150-foot frontage, so it's more in line with the Broadway plan. The concurrent rezoning at that site should be considered as part of the bigger package in site analysis, and there are cumulative impacts. The block only allows 1 tower per block, but I do realize that tomorrow you want to change this. But removing tower per block limits would mean even more displacement of renters, because that other building on West 11th is also a rental building. Next slide. The shadow studies were wrong with the initial consultation. They were wrong again. These ones look like they're kind of correct. But note that you're missing the 2 towers on the massing diagram. You're missing some of the properties on the other side of the block along West 11th. And you know, I'm concerned about these cumulative impacts on solar access. Next slide. If you look at the rezoning application sign, there is no indication that the application has been revised. If you look at one just down the street on West 11th and Pine, you can see that there is a sticker there that lets people know that there's a new zoning application or a revised version. There's no indication there. And staff just used an old rendering in the presentation that they showed you a few minutes ago with the previous scheme, and the referral report also has the old renderings. So you're getting old renderings of what's being proposed, and I do find that unsettling. And I'm also concerned about the revolving door between City Hall and the industry, because right now you have a member of the applicant team who was a former City of Vancouver planner who had worked on the West End Community Plan in conjunction with the current Broadway plan head planner. So, I do have concerns also of people coming in from industry and giving advice as a planner that it's okay to reduce the 150-foot frontage requirement in the West End plan to 100 feet when that was changed 2 years ago. And I think these things need to be addressed. So I would, suggest having rules on tightening the revolving door. And this site is simply just too small to support a project of this size. I urge you to pause the plan.
It's Councillor Kirby Young. Perhaps we could refrain from commentary on the motivations of individuals and staff. Thank you.
Yeah. Stephen, I'm going to ask you to refrain on the comments like revolving door.
Okay, that's fine. So I will wrap up if you can go to the next slide. And I'm concerned with the ecological impacts. And is there a next slide here? Or can you go back one? Go back a slide. Or this is the first slide. And just to wrap up, we're going to be losing another building full of mature rentals, and you are not going to see a one-to-one replacement in like for like of the units and all the tenant displacement that this will cause. It's not going to might not save the trees, and you're not keeping your proper setbacks. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Okay, next speaker is Luis Villegas. Luis, I understand you're in the room, so you heard my earlier warning around procedure bylaw and improper conduct, including defamatory
What happened to
comments.
free speech, Councillor?
Well, it's not a free speech forum in the sense that we do have a respectful workplace. So,
But I'm a taxpayer in the city.
That's not.
Do I
relevant
not
to
have
what
a
I'm
right to
suggesting.
defend my neighborhood?
Sure, but you do
Okay.
not have a right to make
Great.
defamatory comments or violent comments or anything of that
I
nature.
didn't
So
have any violence in my presentation. There was no defamatory comments. I 40 years experience in urban design.
Louis,
I was just simply stating an opinion, like you are or Councillor Sky is. Our opinions don't match.
Louis, I think when you evoke corruption and assign that label, that is defamatory. So I'm going to caution you.
Okay,
I'm
well,
gonna
on
be
corruption,
pretty rigid on this, Louis. So
okay,
you have your
let's
5
go.
minutes. Okay.
Next slide, please. And the next one. So the housing crisis chart shows in black lines with white dots the SkyTrain's build out. In blue, it shows how housing has skyrocketed in price. And in orange, it shows how condominium units like the ones that we're looking at today have done the same thing. How did we get here? Next slide, please. Economists agree that the increase in the cost of houses and apartments is all in the land. The housing crisis was triggered by policy. Giving away 10 to 25 times additional density to a developer, especially triggers an increase in the price of land. If I can build 20 times more building, that piece of land is worth more. So the other sort of problem here is that we really only needed to give 1 or 2 FSR additional density. Next, please. I'm speaking today against this tower going up in my neighborhood. Good urbanism is not a one-size-fits-all solution. Council must stop colonizing neighborhoods with towers. There are far, far better choices out there. Next. The enemy of affordability is inside. When developers can build 10 to 15 times more space on the same parcel of land, the result is a foregone conclusion. The price of land skyrockets by more than 10 to 15 times. It is not good urbanism. Next. On this site, now we're looking at the bottom line. The developers got 10 times neighborhood density. The staff report does not state a parking requirement. My calculations is that we need 354 cars. So if there's not going to be parking, or if there is going to be a third of that number or whatever, the extra cars are going to fill the neighborhood streets. The giveaway here is $20 million in DCCs and DCLs. And there are people tonight sleeping on the streets in Vancouver, and the temperature is going to drop to 4 degrees. Next, please. Next slide, please. There are much, much better options for council. What does it mean when we have a housing crisis? Well, it means that this 20% of the units renting for 20% below market is going to accomplish zero affordability, because the prices are just going to keep going up and up and up as long as government keeps permitting towers. Next. Land use is being used to maximize the profiteering of developers, maximize revenue to government, and make homeowners into renters. Next. Meanwhile, the fundamentals are either ignored or not understood. Towers and houses do not mix. And I encourage any councillor that wants to talk about that to ask a question. Next, please. Developers are selling studios as one-bedroom units now. One-bedroom units are being sold as 2 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms as 3. Unit shrinkage is yet another giveaway to the developer class. These tiny, puny units are unlivable. And I'm an architect, so I have a professional opinion on that. Next, please. When housing costs double, people are caught in a shell game. Money circulating in the economy of the neighborhood is cut in half. Mom and pop shops close. Jobs go begging. And our city is gutted as the tower revenues are reinvested somewhere else. Next slide, please. The right plan for Vancouver is obvious. Towers downtown, including the West End, and human scale in the neighborhoods. That will mean no land left and no housing crisis. Next. It reveals a lack of capacity to put towers next to houses in the neighborhoods. Next slide, please. I apologize. I handed this in this morning, so I can't change that word at top.
You can skip that slide, Louis.
But we want good cities and we want family neighborhoods. Next slide, please. Towers are a downtown typology, not suitable for neighborhoods. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Louis. That's your time. Okay. The next speaker on the list is Gordon Yusko. Clerk's Gordon Yusko.
I'm here.
Great. Thanks, Gordon. And if you can let us know if you're in support or opposed to the project, and if you're a resident of Vancouver. Thank you.
I'm a resident of Vancouver, and I am opposed. For over 12 years, I've lived on 13th Avenue near Hemlock Street, 1 block away from 1365 West 12th Avenue, which is the focus of the rezoning application. Again, I'm speaking for myself, and I'm definitely opposed to the rezoning of this property. I'm sure you've heard of the BC Rent Banks. It's the city's one of 3 main funding agencies for the Vancouver Rent Bank through its contributions to the Neighborhood Inner City Community Services Society. Evictions represent a profound disruption in the lives of renters. Eviction negatively impacts mental health, family stability, and community ties. A recent report from the BC Rent Bank shows that $1.9 million in emergency financial assistance went on to save renters $16.1 million in costs from rent hikes, moving and storage, and lost possessions, while the provincial government saved $11.4 million through lower public expenditures for healthcare, child welfare, and housing services. Those numbers are for all of BC. So what the City Council of Vancouver is doing by allowing multiple evictions on this property and many, many others like it as part of the Broadway plan is uploading the costs of increased mental health problems, family instability, increased child welfare, and other eviction-related impacts onto the provincial government, and in so doing directly onto the taxpayers outside the city of Vancouver. If I were a member of council in another city or town in BC, I would be raising this directly with you, Vancouver City Council members, and reminding you that these evictions are taking money away from the provincial government programs for my community and others like it. That's simply unacceptable when we know that residents living in smaller towns and cities already have significant challenge in accessing healthcare and other safety net programs funded by the province. Why is this not being taken into consideration? Furthermore, the Vancouver Tenant Relocation and Protection Plan is weak, even with its modified version connected to the Broadway plan. Unlike Burnaby, there's no bond or financial guarantee provided by developers as a backup when developers default or skip out on the rules of the TRPP. The subsidies for relocated tenants can and suddenly do dry up. Developers have told these relocated tenants that there's no more money left in the fund, and thus those tenants are left with huge increases in housing costs that were not anticipated when they were given assurances under the TRPP. The tenants of 1365 West 12th Avenue are being subjected to the weakness of the TRPP. They and other tenants in the proposed project rezoning under the Broadway plan are living at the whim of a developer whose primary motivation is profit. It's not okay for this to be happening in Vancouver in 2024. I'm not opposed to density. And if you look at the Cambie corridor and the northern sections of the Arbutus corridor, you'll see this density in the range of 4 to 8 story buildings. This kind of density, along with a mix of smaller houses and yes, a few but only 20-story towers, is more livable. The environmental damage from concrete and glass towers that are 20 stories high or higher is huge. Why not zone for wooden buildings in the range of 4 to 8 stories, and by doing so, supporting the lumber and wood economy of the province, your decision would significantly reduce the harmful effects of building with concrete and glass. Other speakers have talked to other developments nearby this property, and in addition to the ones that have been mentioned by other speakers, you'll see that nearby and on the block of 12 near Granville, there's an empty former seniors home. And that's where a tower should be built in this 2-block stretch of Broadway, not at this location under construction tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Gordon. I do have a question for you, actually. Gordon?
Yes.
Are you still there? Yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
I'm still here.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned the TRPP failures because of black bonds and stuff. I'm curious if you have. I've yet to hear this. In fact, I've asked very specific questions about the TRPP and the covenant that's placed on properties and stuff. Do you have a specific example that you're referencing where the TRPP
I can't list the property name, but I've attended a number of meetings of tenants where they have experienced this directly. They were evicted a year and a half ago, and I can't give you their names or where they're living and what project they were evicted and what property they were evicted from. But they're not making this up. They were told a year and a half into the project of the new project that by the developer that suddenly there was no more money left in the fund, and there was no account of, there was no way they could.
Yeah, I do get a lot of inquiries about this kind of thing. I've yet to hear that, but I certainly will take it away and investigate if that's the case. My understanding is it's not possible under the TRPP, but I thank you for highlighting it.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions?
No, that was it. That was just referencing that one. Thank you. Okay, next speaker is speaker number 4, Wendy Mildred Brundage, and I believe they're in person.
The speaker is on their way, Chair.
Great. Thank you. And I'll offer advance apologies for butchering the last name there.
It's okay, it's Brundage.
Brundage, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wendy Brundage, and I am opposed to this development. I'm a longtime Vancouver resident, actually born here. I've been in my life a homeowner, a landlord, and now a renter. And for the past 8 years, I've rented in Kits, a one-bedroom in a 4-story vintage building with 20 suites. My building is not yet threatened, but I'm bombarded with development applications for high-rises all around me. This particular site, 1365 West 12th, my concerns are, number one, that it displaces the tenants. They're promised to move to a different location that they haven't chosen, only to be invited back 3 years later to a suite that's so much smaller that it no longer meets their needs. The huge shadow and blocking of sunlight that happens with high rises is not to be taken lightly. I have 2 family members with SAD, seasonal affective disorder, and the effect of lack of light is not a pretty thing and creates a lot of mental illness. This will impose on the privacy of the buildings all around it, as do all high rises. It's being built on a tiny lot. I have a question of the developers. How many parking spaces are actually provided?
Unfortunately, the developers aren't able to answer your questions.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Okay. It doesn't specify, but with that small a print, allowing for maneuverability underground, the number of parking spots would be minimal for the 97 proposed suites, which means spillage onto the streets. It's not providing housing that is affordable. 23 units below market value, as with all high rises. When the tenants are invited back, it's to fill those spaces. What about affordable in the rest of the high rise? It doesn't exist. I love this city and I've traveled extensively. Over time, every time I come home, I reappreciate the beauty of Vancouver. Other beautiful cities in the world, Paris, Vienna, Copenhagen, Rome, Venice, do not have high rises. There are better ways. I'm sure that the intentions were good when the Broadway plan was approved, both by our province and our city council. It was seen as a quick fix, but it is not. It does not solve the affordable, and I emphasize affordable, housing crisis. And I believe time was not given to consider the long-term consequences. It's time to pause this plan and look at better ways. I appreciate what a hard job you have as councillors and mayor with so many people with so many concerns. I want to say to Councillor Bly that you really earned my respect during the recent hearing, gas versus electricity, when you said, as councillors, people expect us to make decisions that are best for them, best for the city, and most importantly, they expect us to make decisions that are grounded in fact. And you had the good grace to recognize that you made a mistake and you reversed your vote, quote, for a cleaner, more affordable Vancouver. This restores my faith that we have elected councillors and mayor who actually listens to the needs and the concerns of Vancouver residents. A plan that has been proposed that makes a lot of sense is the KIDS plan. I am not a contractor, where are we here? Or a developer, or a builder, or an engineer, or a landscaper. But this group of committed individuals are, and they have the expertise and with collaboration of Vancouver residents to come up with a plan that is a great alternative to high rises. And I think that time should be given to fully examine that plan. So in closing, I agree with Councillor Carr in the comment she made about the West End being very livable despite its high rises. Going back, however, 20 to 50 years, politicians were far more demanding of developers who were required to include amenities like expansive gardens, courtyards, open entryways, trees, and parking spots. And up until the mid-2000s, also made sure that high-rises did not replace all the character homes and older apartment buildings in the West End, also in
Okay,
Kerrisdale, South Granville, Grandview, Kitts, and elsewhere. This is not the case with the Broadway plan. And I would like to see a return to that.
Okay,
Thank you
thanks,
for
Wendy.
listening.
Yep, I gave you a little extra time there, so
Thank you.
thank you.
I didn't realize it would take that long.
These things happen. Thank you. Okay, speaker number 5, Kate O'Neill. Speaker number 5,
Hi.
Kate.
Yeah, my name is Kate O'Neill, and I'm also speaking on behalf of Anastasia Alexeva. We're both residents of Vancouver and Mount Pleasant, and we strongly support this proposal. When we were reviewing it, we were really a fan of the 20% below market housing, densification in a really well-connected, transit-accessible space. I used to take those buses all the time when I was in university at UBC. It's a well-connected area, and I really appreciated seeing that the applicant team had letters of support from current residents expressing support, and local serving commercial in exchange for density is a really cool plan that promises great benefits for residents. I also really appreciated the retention of the cedar trees. I wanted to express my appreciation for the developer who's making a positive difference to the housing crisis, to the Broadway plan for facilitating it, which I'm fully in support of, and to the councillors and planners that made it happen, and everyone welcoming new neighbors in that area. So some of the things that I love the most about this city, the fact that it's super transit capable, that you can get around walking, the density, and the numerous small and specialized businesses, artists, and general liveliness that thrive here are facilitated by the vibrant density in our city and increased housing stock. Granville is a really wonderful area that I've really enjoyed spending time in throughout my time in the city, with numerous small businesses and fantastic transit availability, with lots of potential to keep taking in new residents from overstressed housing stock throughout the city. So in the 70s to 90s, we had a better ratio of available housing and better prices. So a lot of the people who are current residents bought in during a time where we were building 7% new housing year over year. Now we're building like half that. And when I looked for housing in the Granville area, or honestly almost anybody, anywhere in the city a few short years ago, I was competing against 50 to hundreds or more people per housing spot. I still remember how it felt to watch a family of tour into tiny apartments, sometimes me knowing that they were going to keep struggling. We hear about people who speak on behalf of their current neighborhoods, and we hear from current tenants, but we don't hear from the people who never find housing at all and who leave the city preemptively, or who have to commute for hours from far out of town into downtown. Is any project perfect or without impact? No, obviously, but we're in a crisis and we need this housing desperately. We built enough housing back in the 70s for those who were able to buy in then, and on behalf of young people now, we want the chance to confidently continue living in this city. Ultimately, more supply is more supply, and that will relieve stress for everyone across the housing spectrum. So, of course, new buildings will impact the neighborhoods around us, but to me, that means we're doing the work now to build the city that our young people need, and a city that will work for the next generation and the people who are living there now. I'm really excited about being able to hopefully continue renting and living in the city for years to come, and this tower is a really vital part of that solution. I fully support this application, and again, I really want to thank everybody in this room. I want to thank the developer, and I want to thank the councillors for their time in this. And I am fully in support of this application and motion.
Great. Thanks so much, Kate. And we have apparently a speaker that's in person named Sarah. And if Sarah can come to the podium and give first name, last name, if they're a resident of Vancouver, and if they support or are opposed to this application.
Hello, I'm Sarah McLeod. I do live in Vancouver. I just moved to Vancouver. Not actually, I've been here for 7 months. Couldn't vote in the last provincial election, but I think I'm clear all those walls now. I love this city, and I know that. I've only been here for 7 months, and I love it just as much as some of the residents here who've been here for decades. And I know that because I am here. I care a lot about the way that Vancouver is building towards their future. I actually really appreciate these great big plans, I don't even know which one we're talking about, the Broadway plan, sorry, very new here. The other plans that show what Vancouver can be like in 20, 30 years. I think it's awesome that the city is looking that far ahead. I think that a lot has changed in the housing and affordable housing, social housing areas. Since some of these plans were written, one that I'm looking at now, which is not the Broadway plan, sorry to have not been so read on it right now, I think was developed in 2017. We're in a much different place. I think we can all agree now than we were probably with housing in 2017, but concerning this project, I am opposed to it. One of the reasons, although there are no simple answers, I've heard that a lot in this chamber over the past week, there's no simple answers, but there's no simple answers for why someone chooses to leave a career they're in for 10 years and move across the country. What could drive them to do that and start from the beginning? My honest answer is because of green. I just tell people the color green, or because of how much I love nature. And so with this project, I'm not so studying on it. If the counselors get a chance to ask questions again after, something that drew me to speak today was how a question went unanswered about the 2 existing cedar trees. When asked how many is that from, how I took the question anyways, I could be wrong, was the question was asked like, 2 trees, that's amazing, we're gonna keep them. You know, how many is that from the total that were there, is how I interpreted that question. I didn't think that question got answered. I think they just talked about the 2 that they were saving and not the others that were going away, is my interpretation. So I don't know if questions comes after. That's a comment on this project. Affordability, I mean, I also really enjoyed the city spirit that I saw when talking about the gas versus electric builds. It was so cool, actually. Like, I was crying a lot that day. They were honestly happy tears, believe me or not, because of the people that I saw that care about this city and want it to look as far into the future as these plans, 30 years, but being innovative and not cutting any corners. And I have such respect for the kinds of knowledge and skills and qualifications that the people here have to develop these huge, big plans with conditions and constraints and all that. And I just think that it could, in my opinion, it could all be more innovative. And I think that day too, we heard it even from the counselors, the people, were said to step up their game, told people to step it up, the people who are coming to city council with propositions, at least concerning energy. What the counselors heard affected them too, it affected everyone, and they asked people to step up. And I think we can still ask the engineers and architects and developers and applicants and everyone who's involved in creating Vancouver's future to step it up. And there's so many factors that contribute. I'm running out of time, so I'll try to find a closing point. And another thing that was mentioned on the other day is that, you know, all of these problems we're talking about, they're all interconnected. The affordability, the housing, it's all interconnected. So these things that are being proposed, by the way, are not more affordable than what I'm paying right now. I think I have a lovely landlord and I pay below market, and I'm so grateful for that. And even that for me is not affordable in my mind. Different definitions of affordability. So I just think that this needs to be looked at. People have used the word pause, but it can be more innovative and serve the people better, I believe.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks.
Sarah, that is your time. But I see. Hold the line 1 second. I see Councillor Joe has put a hand up on the WebEx.
Oh, sorry, it's wrong button. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Sarah. I thought Councillor Joe may have had a question for you. Okay, thank you for joining us today, though.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. All right. So this is the third and final call for speakers. If there are any speakers for this item who wish to speak to council, you can call toll free 1-833-353-8610 followed by participant code 1061445 pound. Before the close of the speakers list, that phone number has also been posted on X and made available on the live stream. If there are any speakers in the council chamber now, please come forward to the podium. Otherwise, we're going to take a 5-minute recess for any additional speakers. 5-minute recess starting now. All right, council, that's our 5 minutes. Okay. All right, excellent. All right, clerks, are we back? Do we have any additional speakers in person or on the
Chair,
line?
we have one additional speaker on the phone.
Great. Speaker, you'll have 5 minutes to speak to council. Please let us know if you're a resident of Vancouver and if you, of course, and your full name, and if you oppose or support this application.
I think that would be me. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can.
Okay, thank you. Yep, I'm a resident of Vancouver, actually in one of the properties that is being discussed tonight. My name's Natalie, and I am not in support of these developments. I'm coming online with just a question. I don't know if I could get an answer.
Not really, but it might come up in comments.
I'll propose my concern, I guess. My concern, I guess, is who is holding the developers or the landlords accountable for following the rules of the TRPP and paying out the residents the top up or the payouts. That's kind of a concern of mine and others.
Okay, I think, sorry, and Natalie, I didn't get your last name there, just for
Hill.
the clerks.
Sorry.
Hill, Natalie Hill, yeah. Okay, so yeah, okay. I think that's a reasonable question. You're asking how is the top-up payments, who's responsible for that?
Well, just because earlier it was brought up that somebody ran out of money to pay the compensation, and that's kind of a concern of mine because.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because it would make a difference, right? And so,
yep,
who's following the developers that they're following those rules that they are going to be paying people what they are owed?
Yep, it's an excellent question, and it is something I think we will be following up on. Natalie, do you have any comments on the specifics of the application beyond the
I don't think it's a fit for the neighborhood. Having the large towers in amongst low rise. I think a number of low or mid rise redevelopments might be more fitting, especially in the side streets. Like I get it on Broadway or 12th, they're larger streets. It's more fitting there, I think. But on like the previous one on 11th, I think it just feels like you're going to be looking into people that have, single family homes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Natalie. Clerks, do we have anybody else in person or on the phone?
We do not.
Okay. Thank you then. So seeing as there are no additional speakers, the list is now closed. And seeing as there are few or no public comments received after 5 p.m., I'm now closing the receipt of public comments. Does the applicant team have any closing comments?
Yes, Chair.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Council. I'm representing 1343153 BC Limited. We're the owners and developers of this property. Just wanted to thank Council for supporting the policy which has allowed us to do this work, and especially want to thank staff. Just wanted to clear up 2 questions. They talked about the trees. There's actually 3 trees, and with working with staff and the city's arborist and our own arborist, at considerable cost to us, we've redesigned the building to accommodate the 3 trees. For the parking, there's 64 stalls plus 232 bicycle stalls. Again, thank you for having us here tonight and appreciate the opportunity.
Great, thank you. I don't think did we catch your name?
First name Dason, last name G. Wing. I'm listed on the applicant team.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dason.
Thank you.
Okay. Do staff have any closing comments?
No, we do not. Thank you.
Okay. Does council have any questions for staff? Noting that there are no additional questions to the applicant permitted. Okay, I do have no, I'm not Mayor Sim, but I do have a question for staff, but seeing as nobody else is on the list, and I was going to put myself on, but it's configured for Mayor Sim. Staff, we heard some comments about failures of the TRPP, and specifically that there was no money left in some cases. Have we? And I realize that we're talking about this specific application, but since it's been brought up as a larger like failure of the TRPP, has there been any scenarios like that that have played out?
We should have Emily Brooker on the line from Housing who can answer that question.
Thanks, Lauren. Again, thanks, Councillor. Not aware of any specific situations. We wouldn't anticipate that to occur because we do place holds on permit issuance for us to check that the applicant's meeting the TRPP requirements. So we wouldn't anticipate that to occur, and as far as I'm aware, we haven't had that happen. We'd be interested to know what addresses that tenant is referring to. Maybe they could reach out to staff and we could look into it. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I hope that gives a little bit of assurance to Natalie Hill, who just called in, because yes, okay, thank you for answering that. Appreciate it. Okay, all right then. Seeing no further questions for staff. Clerk, did we receive any additional public comments since the close of public comments?
We have not.
Okay, so council can now make its decision on this application. Do we have a mover for the recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Kirby-Young, seconded by Councillor Joe. Council members, is there any discussion? Councillor Carr, were you on the list, or? Councillor Carr.
Yes, thanks. I was on the list. I don't know why I disappeared for a moment. Yeah, I do have some comments that I just want to say, and I always appreciate the staff's presentation, the applicant being there to answer a question, and all the speakers for raising their concerns and their questions, which can't always be answered, but definitely their concerns and their ideas and comments. And I wanted to respond to a number. First of all, I do appreciate the retention and the clarification that it's not 2 but 3 existing mature trees that are there, and the retention of trees is incredibly important for the livability of a neighborhood. I appreciated also hearing about, and I'd forgotten about this, that Burnaby has a bond or a guarantee on the relocation to guarantee relocation and funding to compensate tenants who are being moved, and do plan to bring that up at the council table. And there was a comment that was made about how other cities, Paris, Venice, Berlin, Amsterdam, a number that were mentioned, that don't have high rises. I've traveled to Europe a number of times, and I have to say, it is a very different landscape, and there may not be high rises in many of those cities, but there are continuous walls of very tall buildings. In Paris, 10 stories, 12 stories along just a complete wall of them. The same in Berlin. And so there aren't single family homes. It's quite a different look and feel. It's certainly, they're very livable cities, and largely because many of them have also moved to very, very good rapid transit and cycling, and they don't have, cars are less so evident compared to Vancouver. And just that, the tenant protections, the retention of the trees, and the landscaping, the fact that towers are not a dominant line, but only 2 per block, I think they are all good measures of the Broadway plan. And so, and to me, it's really important to retain those things and to see the developments that come forward actually reflecting the intention in that Broadway plan to not only allow development, and now it's required through provincial legislation around transit stations, but to just make sure that we do have a very livable city that is changing, and that's tough. I get it. That's very, very hard when we've had neighborhoods of largely single family residences and much more low rise. I also get the point about rising land values, and I plan to pursue that as well. I'm only at 3 minutes and 30, right? Yeah. Sorry, I thought you were fine. That I get the point about whether or not just adding more density is a huge driver of unaffordability, and that is something that that we can bring up at some later time, for example, tomorrow in a discussion of the update to the Broadway plan. But nonetheless, this particular proposal complies with that plan. I think there's good measures that are being taken. The tenant protections are in place, so I will be supporting.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Carr. Seeing no further comments then on the Crescent queue, we're going to do an old school manual vote. Councillor, I'm just going by who I see on the screen. Councillor Kirby-Young.
In favor.
Councillor Carr.
In favor.
Councillor Joe.
In favor.
Councillor Klassen.
In favor.
Councillor Meisner.
In favor.
Councillor Montague.
In favor.
And I am in favor. So that passes unanimously. Thank you, Council.
Motion to adjourn.
Wow.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Kirby-Young, seconded by Councillor Klassen. All opposed, in favor. Okay, carried. This meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody. And thank you, clerks.
Thank you. Thanks, staff.